The words hit me like a slammed door in the dead of night. "You're ungrateful. Get out, and don't ever come back." My mother's voice shook with anger, sharp and raw, and somehow the furniture seemed smaller under its force. I froze for a moment, the room tilting slightly, every movement slowed. My chest tightened, my stomach dropped, and all I could do was look at her, then at my father, who remained silent, as if the floor had swallowed him whole. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply turned, grabbed my bag from the chair, and walked out. The key clicked behind me. The night air was cold and crisp. Frost had begun to settle along the edges of the driveway. Every step on the gravel felt like both escape and exile. I didn't look back. Words can be meaningless, I thought, or maybe I had already said enough simply by leaving. The first few days away were surreal. The apartment I rented in Minneapolis was small, bare, and completely mine. It smelled of my own choices, my own routines, grocery receipts stacked on the counter, the low hum of the heater, the drip of the shower. Ordinary things became symbols of independence. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by dreams that replayed my mother's glare, my father's silence, the house that had suddenly felt alien. But with each passing night, the tightness in my chest loosened. Slowly, it turned into clarity. I realized I could choose, even if it meant being unwanted. Weeks later, my phone began buzzing constantly. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was spam or work notifications. Then the message came. "Dad, why haven't you paid the mortgage?" I stared at it longer than I intended. The words were simple, practical, but carried the weight of authority I hadn't felt in weeks. The mortgage, something I had assumed irrelevant to my departure, suddenly mattered again. I typed slowly, "Oh, I thought I wasn't welcome, boss." And then the flood began. Calls, texts, messages, from my mother, furious and incredulous. From my father, attempting reason, guilt, and negotiation. Even my younger brother chiming in, masking irritation with concern. I stayed quiet, reading everything, letting the tension build in the background. The dynamic had changed. Their authority, financial responsibility, clashed with the fact that I was no longer under their roof, no longer under their expectations. My absence, paired with quiet resolve, created a leverage I hadn't realized I possessed. I didn't feel triumphant, not exactly. I felt a measured recognition. The rules had shifted, whether they understood it or not. I wasn't punishing them. I was asserting boundaries that had never been acknowledged. The irony wasn't lost on me. Conditional love, enforced through financial dependence, had become the very tool I used to reclaim control. Even as their messages multiplied, frantic and pleading, I remained composed. Patterns emerged. My mother's quick anger. My father's passive compliance turned overcompensation. My brother's nervous attempts to mediate. I watched silently, detached, noting how easily expectations could be rebalanced when calm clarity entered the equation. A week later, I made a choice. I paid the mortgage, not out of obligation, not to appease anyone, but to close the gap on my own terms, to remove the lever they assumed gave them power. I sent a text. Payment sent. Let me know if there's anything else I need to know about being unwelcome. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of my laptop and the quiet creaks of the apartment. No confrontations. No apologies. No tears. Only the understanding that authority could be acknowledged and respected without surrendering self-worth. The aftermath wasn't tidy. Calls stopped eventually. Messages dwindled. Family interactions remained strained for weeks. But the psychological balance had shifted. I had asserted my autonomy with precision and forced a confrontation with the conditional nature of their love. They had power, yes, but only in the ways I allowed it to touch my life. One evening, I sat on my balcony, looking at the city lights. The wind was soft, carrying distant sounds of traffic and life moving forward. For the first time since that night in the living room, I felt neither trapped nor guilty, only a steady awareness. Boundaries respected. Dignity intact. A lesson learned without spectacle or melodrama. Power didn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispered in the timing of a reply, in the steadiness of a choice, in the refusal to act out of anger. Victory here was quiet, controlled, and entirely my own.